Okay, let's talk burglary, home invasion, thefts, and white collar offenses. So, thinking about property crimes, right, these generally involve illegally acquiring money or material goods or destroying someone's property for financial gain. And they include things like burglary, larceny, theft, fraud, motor vehicle theft, and arson. Now, robbery is also technically a property crime, but it usually gets categorized with personal crimes, violent crimes, because it's also a violent crime, and that's considered more serious. Now, relative deprivation refers to this discrepancy that exists between what we have and what we would like to have, right? And so you might be someone who has a lot of things or is privileged or has money, but that might be relative to the people around you, right? So even if you have a lot of things, but you live in a neighborhood of people who are significantly more wealthy than you, wealthier than you, wow, that's embarrassing, you might feel deprived. Okay, and it's a psychological distance between what we perceive to have now and what we think we can realistically attain. This is part of this pervasive sense of injustice between haves and have-nots, people who have things and people who do not. Okay, so burglary. Burglary is the unlawful entry of a structure with or without force with the intent to commit a felony while inside. Most commonly, that felony is a theft. You burglarize someone's home in order to steal things from them. But it does not have to include a theft. If I break and enter into your home to beat the heck out of you, that is also a burglary. So the elements involved in here is you have to show a forcible entry. That doesn't mean you have to smash a window or break someone's door to get in. Unlawful entry without force, or an attempted forcible entry. Okay, so about 60% involve forcible entry, about 34% are unlawful entry. That's where you enter but you don't have permission to be entering, and about 6% are an attempted forcible entry. So most burglaries involve residential property, and that can include a garage, your shed, or some other structure that exists on your premises, with summer months being the most common. People are more likely to be outdoors, on vacation. People leave their doors and windows open. Guys, you really shouldn't leave your windows open if you live on the first or second floor of any sort of building, or if you live on a higher floor but there's a way to easily access your windows or your porch. I live on the third floor. I will leave my windows open that are on the side of the building and the front of the building because there's no stairs there. But I have a window right over here next to me that goes out onto a porch. Okay. And I don't leave that one open if I go to bed or if I'm not going to be home because it's super easy to get into my house that way. Okay. I know sometimes it's hot. The breeze feels amazing. And even if you're on the second floor, you might feel kind of safe. But really think long and hard about leaving these things open. Now, burglaries of residencies do also occur during the daytime, and part of that has to do with, routine activities and lifestyle theories, right? As we moved to a culture where both parents work or both adults in the house work, right, that left houses unoccupied during the day. And even in cases where there is a stay-at-home parent, that parent might often be taking their kid to school, picking their kids up from school, right? And so those are times that neighborhoods are often empty. Now, a lot of people, about 2/3, think that burglary can be prevented by locking doors, but about 60% do not use their locks, don't use all their locks, right? So windows aren't locked. I went over to feed my brother and his roommate's cat a long time ago. They were on vacation. They live on the first floor. They had windows open. They both had really nice Mac computers in there. They lived in a densely populated area. I shut all their windows. Now they're going to come home and their house is going to be hot, but at least all their shit is still going to be there. Okay. Now, it is true that locking your doors can make a difference. If people are in a building, right, or somewhere where they're going to try a couple different places and your door's locked, they might move on to something that's easier to get into. So like most of our crimes, this is committed by young men with the average age of 22, and just over half of arrests are folks under 25. Only about 17% are women. 2 out of every 3 burglaries are residential. They happen during the day on weekdays. So this apartment that I'm coming to you from live has been burglarized. It was burglarized probably like 15, 16 years ago. The front door to this building didn't used to have a lock on it. And the other 3 apartments in this building had both the doorknob lock and like a deadbolt up at the top. And mine did not. It just had like the doorknob lock, which honest to God is like the lock on like a door you just might have in the interior of your house. So it wasn't very hard for them to get in. In fact, you have to look really close to see the mark. And if you guys remind me, I'm going to add this to my note over here, chapter 14, I will show you pictures. And if you remind me in class, I will show you how we caught the guy who took not the guy who took my laptop, the poor schmuck who bought the laptop illegally, and how it was retrieved. Now, and that happened during the day. I don't know exactly what time. Nobody was home in the building. I know what time I left for work, and I know what time I got home, and I didn't come home right after work. I went to my sister's house. My niece was very little, and I used to go over there almost every day after work to spend time with her, and so I got home late. And even when I got home, I didn't realize at first that I'd been burglarized. There's a door, like right over there, right, to like a linen closet. It's got my coat, suitcase in it, and the door was open and some things were on the ground, but I figured like, oh, the, old building, right, figured it opened. Also, I used to have one of those huge TVs that you might have a grandparent that still has one that is like massive console TV, but they sit on the floor. Super heavy. So there was nothing really in the living room to steal. In fact, every time I moved, people hated helping me move because that TV was a nightmare. I don't have it anymore. I have a bigger TV, but it weighs less. But then I did go into my bedroom where most of my valuables were, and my laptop was gone, and my camera was gone, and almost all my jewelry was gone. Trying to think of what else was gone. That's pretty much probably all my big stuff that was gone. Oh, and what they did is they took my luggage, put it all in the luggage. Oh, TV, the small TV, like, meaning, one you could easily steal. They put it all in luggage, which is kind of genius, and rolled it down the street. And I live not too far from a bus stop and the commuter rail. So nobody would have questioned this person. Since then, there is a lock on the front door. There is a second lock on my door. Although, alarmingly enough, I came home yesterday, and Amazon had delivered a package directly to my front door on the 3rd floor of a locked building. So, I'm not sure if my neighbors let somebody in or what happened. Or they left the door propped open. So daytime burglaries, right, make a lot of sense because people aren't home, okay? A burglar's trying to minimize contact with victims, right? You want to get in, get some stuff, and get out. So what are some things that they're going to look for? They're looking for clues that a building or a house is occupied, right? Or unoccupied, right? So not a lot of people get the newspaper delivered anymore, right? But are there 3, 4, 5 newspapers piled up outside your house? Is there a lot of mail piled up? Is a car present? What's the state of windows, blinds, and curtains? Okay, you're looking for things that clue you into whether or not someone is home. When I was growing up, you used to be able to buy these little boxes. My parents had them. You could plug your lights into them, and it would turn them on and off at a certain time. Today, I have all these lights in here are Wi-Fi light bulbs. They're a little expensive, but they are worth getting if you, if you want to. And you can hook them up to Alexa. And not only does that let you... Alexa thinks I'm talking to her. Gotta whisper so she doesn't activate. Okay. And what you can do is not only can you turn them on and off with your voice like this. Alexa, turn off the living room lights. Alexa, turn on the living room lights. Which is kind of cool. But you can also set them up on timers. Okay, so I have mine set up so that whenever my phone connects to the Wi-Fi and it's after a certain hour, that those lights will turn on when I come home so that I don't walk into a dark living room. I have my porch light set to automatically go on at sunset and go off at sunrise. And then there's also other features that will turn those things on randomly on and off for you so that it looks like your place is occupied while you're out of town or you're not home. You can also have those apps listen for things like broken glass or knocking. Now, it will trigger things like, knocking on your door, but also like loud noises. Like I'll probably have an alert on my phone in a little bit that says it just heard a knock. Or it won't. And so those are some, features, right? But in the past, you could put your newspaper on hold, have your neighbors pick up your mail, things like that. Ask your neighbor to watch out for your house if they see anything suspicious. We're also looking for cues of what people own, okay? And so that's everything from the appearance of your house, your neighborhood, the make and model of your car, what kind of furnishings are visible. So, Christmas is coming up. Actually, it's probably close to Christmas when you're actually watching this video. It's October when I'm recording it. And people will often take their trash outside right away, right? But maybe trash pickup isn't coming. But now you've got all these boxes outside that show all the expensive things you just purchased, right? You're signaling to people that there's expensive items in your house. And so this is reminding me too. Which slide number is this? Slide 6. Those are things, that can signal that. There used to be a website called pleaserobme.com, and I'm pretty sure it doesn't exist anymore. And what people would do is people were really big into tagging their location initially on Facebook, like, I'm home, right? And then they would be talking later on about how they're going on a vacation for 2 weeks. And maybe it was right after Christmas, and they also posted pictures of all the cool stuff they got. And they friended everyone who sent them a friend request. So 1,000 people knew where their house was, that they were out of town for 2 weeks, and exactly what was inside there. Okay? People are also looking for clues about, like, what's the layout of your place? How quickly can I get in and out? What are, like, access points in terms of like trying to get out of here pretty quickly. So like I said, I live in a pretty busy area. There's a Shaw's and a bowling alley across the street from me, and I'm about 2 blocks from downtown Wakefield, which sounds like, ooh, but there's a lot of stuff going on down there. And then another block away from the commuter rail, okay? So there's people on my street all the time. You guys might have seen a minute ago flashing red lights over here, right? Because police, ambulance, somebody was driving by. Burglars will prefer single-family homes with multiple access and escape points. Corner homes have a lot of access points and fewer neighbors, right? Some look at funeral notices or check Facebook, as I just mentioned. Some knock on the door, right? And then if you answer, they're like, oh, sorry, wrong house. I was looking for my friend Bob. Now, most burglaries are planned, right? And people have cognitive scripts that they're following. These are mental images and plans of how they will act and react in certain situations. They're looking at, how easily a place can be surveilled, how much cover is around the house, is there access to the rear, what's the presence and proximity in neighbors. Today, we would be taking into account things like most people probably have a Ring doorbell camera. And even if you don't have a Ring doorbell camera, Blink, which is a division of Amazon, also makes an equally good quality doorbell camera. And I have one right over here on this door. I also have cameras here in my house. Now, they're not on right now. They're not on when I'm home. But, here's this one on top of my computer. Okay? And this points at the living room. There's one on top of my TV that points... Actually, this points at the door, too, because I used to have a bad habit of leaving candles lit, and then when I panicked that I left a candle lit in here, I could check it. I could log in on my phone. Okay? These will be on sale for Black Friday and at Christmas and all these other times a year now where we do these big sales. And I think they were $35 each, and I think at one point they were buy one, get one free. Okay? The quality of the photos is pretty good. My doorbell camera is pretty good. Okay? So you can get one pretty inexpensively. They're looking for signs, as I said, of occupancy. Is there a car in the driveway? Are the walks shoveled, right? Did it snow and no one has shoveled your walk or your driveway for a few days? Probably not in town. Is the lawn cut? Are there dogs? Are there alarms? You don't even need to have a dog that's like gonna actually bite someone or attack them. You just need a dog that's loud, okay? My niece has a tiny mini dachshund that is loud and barks at everyone and everything on the street, okay? My cousin has a dog that also has a very deep bark and is an Akita and is beautiful and majestic and huge. And the biggest, sweetest little puppy ever. Still thinks he's a puppy, okay? He likes to give what I call people hugs. He will stand up and he hugs me like he's my height when he stands on his hind legs. But he sounds ferocious, and if you saw him, you'd poop your pants, okay? You'd think like, oh, that's a dog that's going to get me. Other things that are popular for breaking in, do you have sliding glass doors, right? So we had these in my kitchen when I was growing up, which was in our backyard, so you'd have to get into the backyard to access it. But my parents always put a piece of, it was like a bar that they put in the bottom of the track so that you couldn't open the door from outside. When I have an air conditioner in this window next to me, right, so that means the window is partially open and unlocked all the time, right? And we know those air conditioners are only screwed in with 2 tiny screws. I have a piece of wood that I put at the top so that you can't move the window and get the air conditioner out and then get in. Now, female burglars are more impulsive, often committing crimes to support a drug habit. They also are often like accomplices and partners, and male burglars. Guys, this is from the publisher. You cannot be a burglar and steal a car. That's not burglary. Apologies. Now, what do people do, right? They're stealing jewelry, valuable household items. Think about how many electronics. As I'm sitting here talking to you on my home laptop, I have my phone in front of me. My iPad is behind me. There's several very expensive cameras in this house. I should stop saying this because these are publicly available on YouTube. So I'm going to stop telling you what's in my house. Forgot it's not just you guys. Coin collections, tools, things that you can resell easily, things you can pawn, things that are easy to carry and remove, right? So like I said, I had that big TV that was on the floor, and that was expensive, okay? But it's not easy to carry and remove, okay? People are all, there's an acronym called CRAVED, C-R-A-V-E-D, okay, CRAVED. They're concealable, removable, available, right? You don't want to steal something super rare because people know it's theirs, right? Valuable. Oh, guys, I forgot what E&D stand for. Concealable, removable, available, valuable, disposable. I forget what E is. Okay. You might be selling them to a fence, someone who buys items to sell, okay? We don't need that as much today because of the internet. People will just post stuff like on regular websites selling it. Facebook Marketplace, whatever. Now, what are people's motives? So it's a challenging skill to develop. So some people like that, right? Like, are they skilled? Can they get in and out of your house super fast? Some people like the excitement. Some people are going back to the same places again and again. This apartment has not been burglarized again, but I have been burglarized where I lived before this as well. Both times I was not home. A lot of folks, this is to support a habit, right? So probably in both my cases, my laptop was stolen. That was, pretty expensive for the time. It was something that was going to be really difficult for me to replace. I had a nice camera, but not like I have a really nice camera now. And jewelry. Okay, the jewelry is mostly sentimental. My class rings, the last piece of jewelry my Nana ever gave me, right? Jewelry my parents gave me when I was little. I did have a really beautiful blue topaz tennis bracelet my parents gave me when I was a young adult. And so those are things, that are gone and can't be replaced. But mostly those have sentimental value, right? So people are literally breaking into homes and stealing because every little dollar helps when you are trying to buy drugs. So remember, we talked about instrumental, right, and expressive crimes. Expressive burglars are motivated by money and satisfaction and accomplishment. Most burglars are not expressive. It's instrumental. They need to steal something, right? They're looking to see, do you have cash in your house? I did have cash in my house at the time, which I pretty much, the cash in this house right now is a pile of change on the side of my bed that's been there for about 2 years. Most of the time it's instrumental. Okay. The cash I had in my house when it was burglarized was hidden. Hidden in a fairly like traditional hiding spot. But luckily was still there. Some burglars are trying to be destructive. They're breaking into a house to vandalize it. Maybe they're breaking in for other weird reasons. There's a house in Wakefield that's been rumored to be a haunted house. I don't know if it still is. I'm going to have to check with my niece tomorrow, who's a teenager. But I know a lot of people who, once they know I live here, they're like, oh my God, have you been to that house? Right? No one lives there. People break into there around Halloween just to be like, ooh, scary house. Okay. Some are trying to demonstrate their technical skills by setting up puzzles, mysteries, or booby traps. Some people enjoy threatening and frightening people, just the fear that causes. And if you've ever had your house burglarized, even when you're not home for it, and even though just things are taken, right? And things are things, right? They're not, nobody's getting hurt. Nobody's life is being taken. It feels incredibly invasive. I did not stay in my home for probably a week or 10 days afterwards because it felt icky being here. Now, different people have done research and tried to put burglars into typologies, right? So Vaughn has done one and says that there's young, versatile burglars. They're committing a wide variety of offenses. There's vagrant burglars. Their crimes are stemming from the fact that, they're transient. They don't have a permanent home. Material gain is their motive. There's drug-oriented. I would bet drug-oriented is a lot higher of a percentage now than it was in 2008. And then there's some that are sexual predators. So there is a body of research that talks about people who commit what's called sexual burglaries. They might be breaking into your house and stealing underwear or things like that. And I've talked about this colonel from Canada in a couple of classes, so some of you might be familiar with this story. Then he escalated to sex crimes, and then he escalated to sexual homicide. Opportunistic burglars, right? This is a different typology that a different researchers put together, is when a crime is not planned. Organized, they come prepared, they have tools, they're very systematic in their approach, they leave the scene clean. Disorganized or forcing entry. Okay, so my entry is a forced entry, but like I said, we probably have a better lock on our classroom and my office. Actually, my office door at Fisher has a better lock than the lock I had before. Don't worry if you're worried about me. There's 2 locks on that door now, okay? And they're almost always locked because I don't come in the front door. And then interpersonal, this is where you're trying to harm someone in an occupied home, right? We often refer to that as a home invasion, when you burglarize a home while someone's there. Now, as I mentioned, this does have a psychological impact on people. First of all, there is the dollar value. Many people don't have insurance. You can get insurance as a renter, by the way. But those also, they're going to have a deductible. There's a certain amount that is not going to be paid out to you. I'm not sure what my deductible is. It's probably $300 or $500. Okay. But like I said, a lot of the stuff that was stolen from me, the laptop was going to be hard to replace. But I got it back. And, a camera's expensive to replace, but it's not hard to replace. But as I mentioned, there's a lot of jewelry that had sentimental value, and that is gone. And so while I didn't wear my high school or my college class ring, those are tied to memories and accomplishments, and it's sad that they're gone. And my parents had bought me a beautiful bracelet that I really liked. And the last, I had some jewelry that my Nana, who's now passed, had given me. As I mentioned, a home invasion is when someone unlawfully enters a residence while someone's there. This is not categorized separately. We don't use the UCR anymore. We use NIBURS, right? But it would be recorded then as a burglary, a robbery, and whatever other crimes take place. This is roughly a quarter of burglaries. Okay. Now, about 20% of household burglaries result in a violent victimization. That could be a simple assault, right? A lot of times the offender's a relative or someone they know, and about a third of the time it's a stranger. So my first burglary that happened when I lived somewhere else, when I lived in a different city with someone I knew. Got my laptop back that time too, guys. I've had 2 laptops stolen. I got them back both times. And then the second time was a stranger. Okay, motor vehicle theft. This is the theft or attempted theft of a motor vehicle. So that's not just a car, right? It's trucks, buses, motorcycles, scooters, snowmobiles, things like that. Okay? Carjacking is when you steal a motor vehicle while it is occupied. Okay, so that's a robbery and a motor vehicle theft, right? So it sounds like, ooh, carjacking, it sounds like it's a new crime. There aren't very many new crimes. There's new ways and methods of committing crimes that have existed for a long time. So it's a motor vehicle theft with a robbery. The intent is usually not to harm the victim. Generally, people want to get your car. Your car is worth about 3 times more if you strip it for parts than it is as a vehicle, okay? Cars that are stolen at high rates of frequency, Toyotas, Hondas, cars that you see everywhere because their parts are valuable, because a lot of people have those cars, okay? Now, carjacking did take place during the marathon bombings or in the aftermath of the marathon bombings. And so if you're not familiar with that, definitely recommend watching like a doc or 2 about it because it's pretty interesting and it's super local for us. But before the brothers were, only one brother was captured. The other brother was killed in a shootout. But before they carjacked a guy who pulled up to get gas in Cambridge. I think on Memorial Drive. And the guy was in the car with him. And then, he wasn't getting gas when he got carjacked. They carjacked him. Then they stopped to get gas. And they went in the convenience store to get snacks. Because they're brilliant criminals and all, and he got out. Okay. Some carjackings do result in a homicide. About 3/4 of these folks are armed. Otherwise, how are you going to get someone to give you their car? 2/3 of the time, the victim resisted. Men are more likely to be victims. Black folks more often than whites. Hispanics more often than non-Hispanics. Now, they're going to be concentrated in certain areas at certain times. Urban areas, parking lots, garages, at night. Now, we talk a little bit about fraud and identity theft in Chapter 15, which if you're taking this class in the fall of 2025, we did Chapter 15 before Chapter 14, but if you're taking this in some future time where I did all the chapters in order, we might not have talked about this yet. Okay? But fraud is deception used for the purpose of obtaining an illegal financial gain. There's a lot of good cases of fraud. If you guys know, what's her name now? There was a Netflix series about her, but it was a dramatized one. And she was on Dancing with the Stars with her ankle bracelet. Anna Delvey. Okay? Committed a lot of fraud. When you commit fraud against rich people, if you sort of duped them the way, the series is called Inventing Anna. Okay. If you watch that and you dupe people the way she did, it's embarrassing. So they often don't report it. Okay. But fraud is a massive category. It includes like, insurance fraud, lots of things. Okay. Identity theft is misappropriating someone else's identifying information, generally to get out credit cards, a mortgage, a car loan, okay? Theft occurs when the information is stolen. Fraud occurs when the data is used for an illegitimate purpose. And often we're not even aware that our information has been taken. So, fun fact for you all. I hope none of you carry your Social Security card in your wallet. Your Social Security card makes it super easy for me to steal your identity. And you shouldn't carry it in your wallet. You should have it tucked away at home, especially because it's something you generally only need when you're newly hired for a job. And you have to prove that you have a Social Security number for payroll purposes. So find a place in your house where you keep it. If you guys want to know my secret spot, I'll tell you in class. Because again, I post these on YouTube and the whole world doesn't need to know. But you shouldn't carry it in your wallet. Okay. In February 2015, there was 115 data breaches in 2-month period. This can occur. I can lift your wallet. I can use sophisticated data mining operations like hacking and phishing, which are also covered a little bit more in like cyber crimes in Chapter 15. Credit card theft is probably the most common. Average dollar amount of losses was $1,830. Okay, I know you guys use like Venmo and probably some of you to a lesser extent Cash App. Number one, Cash App is significantly less secure and it has some racist underpinnings because it was purposely developed to target lower income folks of color. So think about using Cash App. I have that too. But so a lot of people will like get money Venmo to them and they let it sit there in that Venmo account. That is not protected like your money is in the bank. And your money in the bank is insured up to, I don't know if it's $100,000 or $200,000. I don't know the limit because I've never had anywhere near that much money, so mine's always insured. But money that you leave in your Venmo account is not. So if you leave a lot of money in there, when people Venmo you stuff, if you know you're not going to use it soon or it's a lot, transfer it into your bank account. Get it out of there, okay? Can be pretty easy to find people's information, right? Most people have some sort of, social media where their birthday is listed, including the year. Generally, they have where they went to high school and their phone number and their pet's name. And why does that matter? Because this is the crap people use to create their passwords. And so just here's some data on different types of identity theft. Now, shoplifting happens frequently and is costly. And if you've ever worked in a store, worked retail anywhere, you probably saw this happen all the time. I worked in CVS in Malden, and I also worked in CVS in Providence, Rhode Island when I was in college. And I worked at a high theft CVS where we had to have a police officer on duty from like 4 p.m. till closing, pretty much every night, because of the amount of theft that we had. It's about a fifth of all larceny theft. Larceny just means theft. 1 in 10 Americans have admitted to shoplifting, and it's more common actually amongst people with higher education and income. Occurs across all kinds of socio-demographic levels. Some have very sophisticated techniques. I saw an episode of like Dateline or 2020, probably 20 years ago at this point, where they showed how these shoplifting rings would get stuff out of the store without setting off those tags that are on your clothes in the store. Electronic surveillance can reduce shoplifting, and it's more effective than security guards or redesigning your store. But it's a vastly underreported crime, right? Because store personnel are very rarely calling the police for this. Now, things you should know about shoplifting. Everything you've seen on TikTok about how Target tracks your shoplifting is absolutely true. Okay? Know someone who works in this area, expertise, whatever, at Target. And it's not the camera. You know when you go through self-checkout and there's that little camera facing you? It's the cameras in the sky. They're very good. They're good to the point where I recently shopped in a Target where a grad works. And I got a text from her after I left saying, "Did you just leave the Target in Revere?" And I was like, "I did. You must be working today." Okay? That's how closely they're watching those cameras. That she just happened to see me in the store. I don't go to that store often, and she saw me on my way out. Luckily, I wasn't stealing anything because that would have been embarrassing. This is probably the most common court referral for minors. It declines as we get older. We move into adulthood. A lot of times people believe that behavior is justified. Target's a big store. They've accounted for that loss. Screw them. People engage in techniques of neutralization, ways they neutralize in their mind that like they believe that stealing is bad, but ways they justify it. These are used extensively by shoplifters. I didn't hurt anybody. The store can afford it. About 3/4 of shoplifters, regular shoplifters, started before they were 10. Many stop soon after their 18th birthday. What else happens as we become adults? We get jobs and we have money, right? This behavior is more common amongst men. Okay, now there's all different kinds. There are people who are commercial shoplifters, right? They work with a crew. As I mentioned, one of these, news magazine, television shows did a story on this. It was as simple as taking, I don't see these bags anymore, but like big department stores used to have these like brown bags that you could, not brown bags, they kind of like brown bags, paper bags with handles that you could put a bunch of bags in. Okay. And if you just lined that with aluminum foil and then put the stuff in there, it would not set off the sensors. Now, this was intriguing to watch. However, I'm not sure it was smart to tell all of America exactly how to shoplift. What are motives for this? Sometimes it's just like thrilling, right? Because wealthy people shoplift. Sometimes it's peer pressure. Sometimes it's you want a thing that you can't afford. Most don't really consider it very morally wrong. Sometimes people are lifting something for someone else. Some see this as a well-paying occupation. For you guys, this is not going to be a well-paying occupation. Oh, look, did you guys see that? More red lights. You have to be part of these like major theft rings. They might come back and exchange things for cash. If you find like an abandoned receipt, say you lost or misplaced the receipt. Now this is harder to do today because many people are buying things with debit cards, right? And all your stores are tracking that. So like, Walmart, Target, all let you put in your phone number, right? Because like there's rewards in your account. That also means they can track all your purchases. So like saying like you lost the receipt isn't going to work as well. Men prefer to use pockets or clothing. Women will use bags. BT dubs, putting stuff in your bag in Target, even if you intend to pay for it later on, will still get you busted for shoplifting. Some people will just wear clothing out of the store. They stick it in their kid's stroller. I know a lot of people who will go into Home Depot, put something on one of those big flat carts and just roll it out the door. Now, some people have a disorder that is in the DSM-5, kleptomania, and it's an impulse control disorder. Most studies show us, though, that most shoplifters, it's for economic reasons, okay? It's generally not kleptomania. Now, white-collar crime refers to crimes that are committed in the course of a white-collar profession. What do we mean by a white-collar profession, right? So think about blue-collar refers to people that do a lot of manual labor, right? They wear a uniform at work. Not a McDonald's uniform. Think mechanic, plumber, electrician, things like that, okay? Now, white-collar is generally people who are wearing, like, a button-down business shirt, right? So people in, like, other types of profession. Okay, it can be occupational, which is done by an individual for their own gain, or done by an entire corporation through its agents. Okay, great example of corporate crime. Look up the Enron case. Now, these sort of crimes are not super interesting to me, as I'm sure surprises none of you. But there is a documentary on Enron that's actually pretty interesting. Okay. Now, Green puts these into 4 categories. Nobody's really it's not widely adopted, right? But there's organizational, and that's where the corporation benefits. Falsifying tax records, monopoly violations, antitrust violations. There's professional, which is illegal behavior committed by people like lawyers, physicians, psychologists, teachers. This can be Medicaid fraud, suborning perjury. State authority, white-collar crime, which is a violation by people who have legal authority, right? We often call these positions of public trust, taking bribes, use of force, that's like inappropriate. And then individual, like if I'm stealing stuff from my employer. Now, this is difficult to measure, okay? Because again, like we will talk about in chapter 15, or like you already read about in chapter 15, some of this is too advanced for local law enforcement to investigate, right? People often don't report it. It often results in civil suits instead of criminal charges. Now, corporate crime is a type of white-collar crime, but it's done by the corporation. So in the 1980s, there was the savings and loan scandal that cost $300 to $500 billion. Now, these folks are also engaging in techniques of neutralization. They're restructuring their behavior. They're justifying it and rationalizing it. Okay? No violence occurred. They say things like we are restructuring or reassigning people. A lot of times, multiple people are involved in the decision to engage in this behavior. No one person is to blame. Sometimes it's a result of not thinking about consequences. If I remember correctly, this Ford Pinto case, they knew there was a problem with some part in the car, but it was going to be more expensive to issue a recall than to pay out lawsuits. And as I mentioned, there's also individual occupational crime. Now, finally, there's employee theft. This is people stealing stuff from their place of business, okay? That could be company property, merchandise, supplies, tools, equipment. That's about a third of them. About 2/3 admit to other types of misconduct, right? A lot of these, things like abusing sick leave, right? Saying you're sick when you're not sick. A lot of people engage in this behavior. It's technically time theft, right? Like doctoring your timesheets, like clocking into work but not doing your work, right? Drug use on the job. Why do people do this? Some people are like, it goes with the job. Everyone here does it. And that is true. When I got my job at CVS, I was like 16 years old, I think. It's the summer before my senior year of high school. Summer before my senior year of high school. Thought I was just going to work there for the summer. A whole bunch of jobs that opened up because all the people working there before, all but like the managers who were adults, but all the teenagers who worked there were friends, and they were all stealing, and they all got fired. So boom, big hiring. The highest level of thefts occur by younger unmarried men, right? Might not feel any commitment or loyalty to the company if you see everyone else is doing it. And they might be dissatisfied with their employer.